What's going on, y'all? Good morning. It's Wednesday. Not even sure of the date anymore, to be honest with you. I'm going to say the 15th. But welcome to the next installment of this American History video. It's American History 1. We transitioned. We moved into the market revolution period. So once the War of 1812 is over, I'm outside, so you're going to hear some traffic. So once the War of 1812 is over, and the British were kind of vanquished, at least throughout most of the country, it allowed the American frontier to push forward. It allowed American sort of ingenuity, capital, resourcefulness to go in different directions. And it led to a commercial revolution that fundamentally changed America. It set up the competition over wealth control that became the Civil War. So I gave you 4 terms on Monday: market revolution, roads and steam, Erie Canal, and I think railroads and telegraphs. So let me chop up that market revolution. So the market revolution technically flowed from 1800 to 1840. It is an amalgamation of investment, technology, expansion, ingenuity, and it led to a fundamental change in America. In 1800, you would have paid the same amount of money to pay for goods to travel from Cincinnati to New York as you would from New York City to London. Here comes Harley. Don't let her interrupt you. The whole idea of building infrastructure within the country in the form of canals, railroads, telegraphs was so completely futuristic that by the time we reach 1800, it's amazing to think what's going to happen within the next 40 years. I mean, the market revolution is sort of centered around the idea of Jacksonian democracy. This is the era of Jackson. He's going to come into power during this time. And you have this explosion and this expansion of capacity, wealth, commercialism that is amazing. It truly is. And it's really based around a lot of innovations. So I transition. Roads and steam. So there were no roads in America in the early 19th century. Now, when I say no roads, there were roads, but they were like dirt roads between my house in Pine City and State Line in PA. Some real raggedy roads. Between 1800 and 1830, 900 railroad companies were founded. Their goal was simple. We're going to build roads. We're going to charge tolls. If individuals want to move past in horse and buggy, they're going to have to pay a toll. And so in order to keep them from passing, they would put a log in the road, a pike, P-I-K-E. If you paid the toll, they turned the pike, hence turnpike. But as Americans, we don't really like paying for anything that we don't have to. You understand what I'm saying? So immediately we started building roads around the toll. They call those shun pikes. So all these railroad companies, 900 in total, ended up going bankrupt, making no money, which is why today, who builds roads? The feds, the states, municipalities. There's no money in road making. But those roads really helped to tie the country together. 1806 was the first congressionally funded road, and the first real funded road in federal terms was the Cumberland Road that we mentioned before. That was founded by the Scots-Irish, right? So I moved to steam. Robert Fulton was an artist, an American. He traveled to France to hang out, learn some more skill on the canvas. And while he was there, he got intrigued with steam, which was all the rage in Europe at the time. So Fulton designs a steam engine, a steam ship, that he sails on the Seine River in 1803 successfully, comes back to the States, and in 1807 he's going to sail I guess I call it a steamboat on the Hudson River called the Clermont. It's going to go from Albany to New York City. It's chugging along like this monstrous animal. People are lining the shores of the Hudson to see this thing. It looks like it's going to explode at any point. But it was successful. And what steam did was change riverways into highways. You know, previously, how did you get a boat or a barge or a raft back up river? You had to pull it. You know, you had Pullman. That's what they did. After this, you don't need that anymore. Fundamentally changes things. The Erie Canal is a New York State beast. As New York State, we should be so proud that we were able to accomplish this. Finished in 1825, it was 363 miles long. The governor at the time was DeWitt Clinton, and everyone said it was a dumb idea. They called it Clinton's Big Ditch. It had to go through Montezuma's swamp. It had to go through other impenetrable, terrain and geography within New York. And it was paid for with all New York State money. When it's completed in 1825, now Albany and Buffalo are connected. So essentially, I can go the Hudson River from Albany to New York City, and now I can take the Erie Canal from Albany to Buffalo, which ties me into the Great Lakes, which now marries the Midwest to New York State, to New York City, to the world, and it is a vascular system of commercial growth that is unbelievable. The canal also was a conduit for ideas, religion, immigration, all of the above, you name it. And because of that, the cities of Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo become kind of mega cities in upstate New York. If you've ever been to Syracuse, you've been on Canal Street. Canal Street is where the canal actually ran through Syracuse at that time. So the Erie Canal was amazing. The next longest canal in the country at the time was 28 miles long. Canal building became really vogue, but the reality was by the time most states got involved in canal building, the railroads came along. But by 1840, you still had 3,000 miles of canals that were now connecting the United States. Very, very important. The last term I chopped up was railroads and telegraphs. So railroads are another American proudity. Made that term up, a proudity. You like that? So beginning as early as 1828, the first commercial railroad, the Baltimore to Ohio, or the B&O as you know it, if you play Monopoly, was finished. And schools like RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute in Albany, became synonymous with like railroad science, railroad engineering, and building railroads became a thing. We finished our Transcontinental Railroad in 1869, 50 years before the Russians or the Canadians. Now, I'm moving forward in history there, but understand that railway construction was futuristic in the market revolution era. It really was. But the Northeast was far more advanced than the South. So by the time you get to the Civil War, the South's building railroads to really connect cotton fields to ports, whereas the Northeast is building railroads to connect commercialism and industry more generally. And that's going to be a big advantage when the Civil War comes. The last piece was telegraphs, which is Samuel Morse, right? You've all heard of Morse code. Another artist who went to Europe and studied his trade, but found his ultimate historical significance in something else. Samuel Morse is credited with perfecting the telegraph. He sends his first message from Baltimore to Washington, D.C., and it says, "What hath God wrought?" If you think about people's cell phones going off in movies, it's kind of funny that he was that prescient to think, wow, this is really important technology long term. By the time we get to the Civil War, it's basically a 20-year window. You have 50,000 miles of cable laid across the United States. Almost all of it is for news media. This is the same era that the AP or the Associated Press comes out. And so information is going to travel rapidly. I talked about the canal, which seems like kind of archaic compared to the telegraph. But all of these instruments spread technology, commercialism, etc. at a rate that's unprecedented. So those are the four terms. That's basically the market revolution. We're going to move from there into next video. I'm going to chop up John Deere, Cyrus McCormick, and then we'll move into the factory system within the United States as we push into the era of Jackson. I miss y'all.